So this is our Generative AI in Enterprise series that I started like a week back. Today is our second, day in this meetup. So I was looking for some, meetups so that I can discuss and brainstorm ideas about generative AI. And about myself, like I have been in the IT industry. So I'm Ujjal Bhattacharjee. I work in Freedom Mortgage, and which is in Cherry Hill, and I live in Princeton area. So I have been like, working in this IT industry for almost 20 years now. Actually, 20 years. So December 2003 I started, and I feel like I'm still learning. I pretty much don't know anything. Right, the whole industry keeps on changing, and there are always new things coming up. And I've been in the AI space for the last 1.5 years, like 1 year now, and working in the generative AI space, working in the conversational AI space. And I was looking for brainstorming areas and did not find anything, so I got started and with this particular group over here, and I saw a lot of enthusiasm and excitement all over the place. So the series is Generative AI in Enterprise. We have this meetup.com group. This recording will be, one of my friends told me, hey, why don't you put all these recordings in YouTube? I'm like, okay, let me create a YouTube channel. So today only I created a YouTube channel called Curious Critics, because I'm just curious about new technology. So the session will be available in Curious Critics YouTube channel. And of course, we have our guest speaker today, Patrick Adekons, or Paddy, right, from Veso.ai. So thank you, Paddy, for giving your time to share your experience and the products that you're building. So
Excited to be here. So thanks for including me.
Awesome. Okay. No, we are all glad that you are here. So this is our agenda. So we'll keep it sharp and sweet and to the point as much as possible. So we'll do a quick introduction. I'll go through disclaimers, some housekeeping, some participant introduction. Then I'll hand it over to our speaker, Patty, from Veso.ai, and then we'll have our Q&A session, open floor, and then we'll share experience and networking. So this is how you can connect me and connect Paddy also. So this is our QR code. We can connect out. We are available on LinkedIn. Feel free to connect us through this QR code. Disclaimers. So one of the question actually was asked to me, like, hey, you're from Freedom Mortgage. Is this like sponsored by Freedom Mortgage? So this has got nothing to do with Freedom Mortgage, my current employer. This is all my own opinion or my own interest area. The session is being recorded and will be available in the YouTube channel. Housekeeping. So please make sure if you're not speaking, your microphone is muted. We are in this, Zoom session. So camera, please feel free to turn on your camera. It's optional, but we'd like to see you on video. If you have any questions, raise your hand through the Zoom option over there, like raise hand. If you have, you can also use the chat function for any questions and comments. We'll try to wrap this, presentation session by 7:40, and then we'll have 20 minutes for Q&A. So I was going through some of the participants who have been interested, and I was trying to collect some of the interest area. And so we have some participants who are like very curious to know like what's going on versus like some who have been in the AI space. So Satin Sharma, AI enthusiast, Prakash Rao, like to experiment with GenAI for some use cases in my platform. Interesting. Jimmy, no experience, willing to learn. Great. We have Jumana. I did not see any message, so we'll get to that. DJ, curious, AK Ashok, DM, Arnab is my friend. So he was like, he's from AWS. So he said, hey, I mean, this seems interesting. So I'll join. I don't know whether Arnab we have joined or not. We'll check. And okay. Then we have Oscar working in AGI. Very interesting. Vivek, I want to check it out. Carly Jagannathan. I'm a leader who is interested in learning how we could leverage generative AI. I'm interested in more detailed specifics, not just marketing fluff that I can easily get by Googling. Very interesting thought process. Paul, certified Scrum Master, product owner. Jeremy, learning. Most of my experiences is in the creative industry, but also using GenAI. And Sandy, we were already talking. Interested in how AI may infiltrate higher education, getting MSc degree in digital education and then masters in AI. So that was a quick introduction. Paddy, the floor is all yours. You have an idea about the participants. So go ahead. I have some key questions that I'll come back to this like once you're done with the presentation.
So okay. Yeah, fair enough. So my name is Paddy. I'm with Veso.ai, and we built this nice tool to go to market to help address a lot of those concerns that were brought up to intro to the call, if that makes sense. So so for today, we kind of put together a light agenda. We'll just kind of go through a quick slide, show you the platform, and please feel free to ask questions organically too. That's totally okay. So if you're okay with that, I'll just dive right in for the sake of time and do my best to be as concise as possible. Is that cool? So, and do you mind giving me screen sharing power?
Yeah, sure. Absolutely. How do I do that? Let me think. Screen share, make host. I can make you the host. Allow record files. I'll just make you the host. So you're the host.
Awesome. Okay, cool. So here. Can you all see my screen?
Yes.
Great. So our product we built is called VesoNexus, right? And it's exactly what it sounds like. It's a SaaS-driven platform to help with those generative AI use cases. So first, quick introduction. Most of us know what generative AI is. What's a nice little refresher? It's just a nice tool based on learning models just to create content, help your job with tackle some job tasks that you may need to expedite some time with. You can use all sorts of learning languages to always upskill your role. So now my role here is strategic growth. So I'm responsible to kind of going out there and prospecting and partnering with companies and people to try to find an effective way to leverage Gen AI appropriately. And what we're seeing a lot is too, like a lot of the conversations, is like what is going to happen in 2024, right? So a lot of the initiative for me to reach out to folks to see what they're thinking is solely basically because a lot of data-driven experiences and decision making is going to be dictated by Gen AI. Couple challenges with that. Implementation. We all come from a software background or enterprise background, so I'm sure challenges are always going to be there. But some of the things we've been talking about is, you need to use, high quality data that's trainable to always learn and help. I live in Maine, so there's a generational gap. Like my folks need a little extra handholding to understand Gen AI versus others. So we also offer education too to come in and help. Some industries like mortgage industry or insurance or always going to have to navigate compliances as well. So sometimes those hurdles come into play. How do I effectively implement AI while checking off all those boxes? And at the end of the day, like any other software piece, it's always going to come down to investment and expertise, right? So that's why we're here too. Speaking of regulation, some of the things we always get to talk about or think about is data privacy. How's it being collected? How's it being shared? Data breach is always top of mind. Sometimes there's bias when you build out your language model. So transparency comes in hand with ethical concerns. And just governing it as well. Do you have a team? Always educate folks, because of that human factor too in AI as well. They're always going to need someone to help out with that. And then hallucinations as well is really important to think about in terms of just transparency and accuracy too. And there's some cool highlights about what we do. So we built what's called ContextAware technology. So and the whole mission is to be as accurate as possible in real time and quick as well. So think of this as your AI sidekick for your role. In our tool, you can switch around with AI models as well. We can work with 50 plus different language models or even build one out collaboratively too. So just really comes down to nuts and bolts. What's the task at hand we got to accomplish, right? And let's just find the best matching solution or strategy. And then with context, we like to create your own Oracle, think the Oracle Delphi, right? So, just to kind of get accurate for those tills or an HR for DEI experiences and other use cases as well. So kind of alluded to what we did. It's an AI platform. And we took the approach to try to make it easy because the reality is when you talk about governance, right, a lot of folks aren't that tech savvy, and that's okay. So we want to make it easy to use. You can build it on the fly. We can come out of the box with 50 templates based on use cases. The opportunities really are endless with our platform. And then this, why us? Comparison here, we really take that business use case mentality first. So when you think business organization, enterprise organization, internal control is always a factor. You have, by having that control, you have all your data there too. So you can really get targeted with your tasks at hand as well. So that is just a quick deck there. And I will take some time here to bounce over to our app. But before I hop in here, any questions? Does that all make sense?
It makes sense to me. I have one question. If you can, like you mentioned, like enterprise, you mentioned databases, you mentioned like documents, right? You mentioned like also like a plug and play, like different LLMs or kind of like different chat models, right? Can you give some more context about like some use cases where someone would use your tool?
Sure. So great question. So I have two examples. Where I live in Maine, fisheries, for instance, is a big focus because that's the main economy of the state of Maine, right? So we're using our tool to help those seafood processors and purchasers navigate issues like driving acquisition costs down. Also, you have to buy things from auction, so you're trying to decide what's a better purchase to sell to your customer. And then within other departments throughout the country, HR teams are using this tool as well. So we're finding ways to promote DEI initiatives and drive bias down in the hiring practice, virtual assistants to help with the screening practice. And then if you jump over to sales and go-to-market teams, we can help identify how to properly target create collateral for your sales team. So you have some BDRs that need some outreach practices and forecast market trends too. So those are just a couple things that we're working on right now. So
sounds good.
Patty,
Okay.
I have a question. This is Prakash.
Hey.
Hey, Ujjal, thanks for setting this up. This is so timely. I appreciate it. I think somebody's taking the initiative here, and such an informal kind of a meetup, but I'm sure this is a serious topic. So Patty, for you, the question is related to, starting with all the stuff that's going on. We hear a lot of things, and there are products like yours. I'm sure you're going to see a little bit of that, but typically from the time somebody comes and defines what a use case is, or at least starts a discussion about a use case, what is the time horizon to get something like this in place that is working and operational? And typically, what is a cost range to get this thing done? And I will caveat this question with my understanding of where the state of the industry is. It's still early days for Gen AI is what I think. And everybody is just in an experimental phase, which is why I'm excited right now. I've seen trends for the last 40 years. I've been in this business. And so it's fantastic time. I think this is, I'm extremely jazzed up about it. But I think on the other side, I just want to hear some real practical. I mean, you're in a small group, and I'm hoping if it needs to be edited, Ujjal will edit this portion. If you want to just tell us what it is before it gets posted on YouTube, like what is the reality of Gen AI and how real it is in terms of actually seeing the results?
Yeah, that's a great question. So it's definitely real. It's a real thing. It's helping people accomplish all those tasks. From a pricing standpoint, there's a SaaS model, which we can get into after I go through the demo, totally fine. But also my CTO here and technical founder Elias is on the call. So Elias, that's definitely some of your speed too. So do you mind addressing that question as well?
Yeah, great. Can everybody hear me?
Yep.
Thanks, all. As a CTO, I'm having technical issues with the camera, but let's jump into the. I've captured some of the comments that that were added by Prakash, and excellent sort of angle to hit it on. So that's the. I'd like to preface it by agreeing in the sense that Gen AI has been obviously the biggest topic this year when it comes to technology by far, and with that comes a wave of every sort of different approach to it because it's so new. And as you've been in technology for so long, you understand when a new technology essentially hits the, let's say, the mainstream or the main trend, it's almost like the double diamond principle, where a lot of people are figuring out, they're expanding with their thinking, and they're thinking, how can we best apply this tool and these technologies to actually get output? What we saw a lot of this year was people thinking that they had to, well, we've got to get a large language model, and now we have to train it with our data, and we have to do this and that. And we went, okay, we thought, okay, contrarian to that approach, which everybody is just parroting, how about we do some deep research? So we got a team together. We open sourced the vector database. We went really deep into like, how do you make large language models actually be valuable to businesses? That's a use case that we were addressing. Like, how do you take a ChatGPT to a business and make it valuable or make it useful? And we found that the models are more than sufficient enough, especially the open source models that you can get now, or using GPT or Claude, using the model providers. The models themselves, even frozen, meaning none of your data trains those models anymore. The models are up to a point where they're sufficiently equipped to handle most data transformation and data. Let's say the main thing you'd use generative AI for, especially with the text-based generative AI, you'd use it to transform data. You'd use it to extract insights. Imagine it as a superpowered search to begin with. So it's a search that can really look into all sorts of different data that you provide it, not just a database, but you could throw in some emails, you can throw in vectorized documents, hundreds of pages in length each, and it can, because of the inherent technology of semantic search, it can do really fast lookups. But anyway, I'm gonna keep going into the tech. But essentially, what we focus on is not the model, but that interoperability layer from you as the end user. How do you get the best response or the best output every time you use this technology? And when we say best, we look at the metrics. How usable is the output? If you're creating a proposal, are you able to upload hundreds of documents that might go into that from an RFP and then be able to put together a proposal? More importantly, where semantic search, which is this AI-powered search that we use now, works differently to traditional search, is it's fast, but it's lossy, meaning it's going to do the best job it can to find the most relevant information out of the data that you provide it to give you an answer. There's one space of research we focus on, and that's improving how good the recall is. So in a nutshell, we focus on one specific technology, and we provide this technology in this product, which is user-facing, called VesoNexus. That one particular piece of technology we focus on makes it useful to businesses. So that RAG and that reinforced learning on the fly is our real, I guess, is the crux of our organization. And we're an AI research organization at the core. So we have research teams internally. We open source projects to the world, and we have our own closed source projects. We do a lot of work in this space at the moment to ensure that we are essentially creating value for businesses. So this product here that Paddy's about to demonstrate, just getting our focus back there, it encapsulates our technology to make it really easy for the end users to understand how to use it and get the most value out of it. It allows you to upload biographies, information about yourself and your company, so that if you were to go, and I'll let Paddy go through the demo, I'm not going to speed through it, but essentially the business use case here is latency. So the time it takes you to make stuff and create stuff and take insights out of information. Imagine your traditional reporting flow is now something that you can just chat to. You can upload legacy documents that you might have had from the 80s, 90s, or recently, databases, everything into the system, and it'll be able to start extracting and working with that data. So it's really impressive stuff what that interoperability layer can do. And we're really just at the start of it, and it's already creating so much value. So we're seeing people adopt it, and now the communication across the organization is really unified. They create templates to do certain things like extract insights from customer responses, or they connect data sources into the product, and they periodically can chat to it so they can extract insights. A local government use case, for example, could be that they load in all their ratepayer information. So that's when somebody, say, contacts the local government area, or the, I think you call it city councils, they'll be able to retrieve information about that ratepayer and their query in real time without having to go through multiple systems. So that's where Veso really becomes important. It becomes your central knowledge base for the entire business that can be accessed by the appropriate people. What that means in a nutshell is, when you're adding people, and when the natural course of business occurs and you add people into your team, and you might have to farewell a few people, you keep that data in your system, so you don't have that knowledge walk out of the door, and that empowers your business to keep that centralized database. But anyway, that's the quick and dry. Prakash, do you have any questions, or anybody else, regarding the technicalities of how that works?
Thanks, Elias. Obviously, I have a lot of questions, but I don't want to talk about this one. Let's move forward. I mean, if there are other questions.
Yeah. All right. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, Elias. Appreciate that, bud. So, okay, jumping back to this, as he was saying, from an end user lens, you would just set up your profile here. As you know, my name is Patrick Adiconis. I live in Maine, and a little disclaimer here. So, for instance, we have a little internal chat functionality here to use on the fly. And it just comes out with an answer there. And then you could even say, that might take an extra second, but
that was a beautiful question, because that is exactly what I was thinking about.
And if you want, I'll even download this, and I can send it to you guys after too. That's cool.
Sure, yeah, that would be a good addition.
So that's just that's step one of just a live virtual assistant, right? Then we have what he was mentioning, libraries. This is where you can upload pretty much any file you want to provide that data contents, right? So for instance, I could just even create one. We can put meetup group, hit organization, hit create, and then I can just add a file. So we'll just, you can do all sorts of things there. You can create a new chat right from here to go back here. What's really cool, if you're at an enterprise company and you have multiple teams, everyone could have their own library. So this could theoretically say HR, sales, venture cap, whatever it looks like, from an agnostic point of view. And then once your library is created, you can even run an app. So these are some of the most common apps that people request. So you have social media manager, FDA, proposal, you name it. So for instance, we'll just do something fun like message hype. So I'm from New England, and then hit run, right? And it will create some content for you too. So
his loyalty to Philadelphia, for example.
Yeah, I don't know what happened there.
We lost a great player.
Yeah, but yeah, this created that. So once it creates some content for you, it'll go to an inbox. It's literally essentially a smaller specialized email inbox, and it'll just archive all the material you want. So you can even download it. You can even see what the prompt you put in, copy it, and it'll do all sorts of things. So
what is the limit of the libraries, like the storage? Because chat, I have the paid version of chat, and it still has a limit on what I can upload into it.
I think 4 documents right now. Correct.
Sorry?
Is it 4 documents right now? ChatGPT?
Is that only 4 documents?
4,
yeah, okay, interesting.
4,000 characters.
Oh, okay.
Oh, no. We've got
a lot.
so the way our system works is we've got a context window of 200,000, but that happens behind the scenes. What you can upload in terms of documents is there is no virtual limit. You can only go, the only limit we impose at the moment is up to 200 megabytes per file, but there is virtually there is no limit to the amount of files that you can upload to a library. So in theory, you could have a library with 100,000, 200,000 files in it, and then that could be accessed by anybody. That library can also be connected to information systems. So you could connect that library to JobAdder, to Salesforce, and automatically have ingress information. So say you put it with your HR marketing departments, there could be a library that automatically sucks in new CVs and new applications from employees. And that means that your sales team essentially, or your marketing, your HR team will just go into a chat and go, well, tell me about this candidate, because they can assume that that information's already been ingested. They'll go, well, this candidate applied on this date and they're pretty good. I think you should ask them these questions. So that's where chat becomes really powerful, because it's context aware. It knows who you are. It knows exactly what your mission is. It's just there to help you.
You mentioned Salesforce. Is there a HubSpot connectivity also?
Yes. Yeah. Correct.
So that is a good question, right? What are the different connectors that you support right now?
Yep. So we're using a partner called Stack One. They were funded by Sequoia, and what they do is they've created a single API. Essentially, what that means is it connects to all major information systems. It allows you as the end user to go into VesoNexus. What you see is you either go into VesoNexus or we set it up for you. But the self-serve is that you go into VesoNexus, you authorize the system connection. Similar to how when you log in with Google, you get that pop up. It'll be like that. Go like, do you want to connect your data? Yes. That's a very simple integration where it's almost very self-serve. We go all the way to custom integration. So if you're, say, a government agency or you're a large enterprise with this data lake that you go, there's a lot of data that lives in there. Can we suck it in? We go, yeah, we'll just create a custom connector for that. So essentially, if you want a very quick integration, as long as it's supported by API, if you want something custom, we just kind of build that connector as needed. We don't charge for that connector building. Depending on most cases, it's usually something we do on the house.
So related to that, is there how does it know the structure of the underlying database, or is that part of the API definition? How does it figure out the structure and the attributes, etc., within the database?
Yeah, so that's the secret sauce. So that's what ContextAware is, and that's why we've done quite a lot of work there. So we provide a certain level of context to the system when it's running the semantic search of what it's looking through and what the files are in relation to each other, so that it's a hybrid search. It's not just pure semantic search; it's hybrid. So it has context awareness of the library it's searching through. So that is, great question. That's a point. That's really the crux of our research, is how do you let the system know when it's looking for stuff, where that thing is in relation to the other thing, so that if it needs to check the other files that it might not check immediately, it should go back and check them. So in short, we're building, that's our technology. That's exactly what we're building.
So Patrick, question to you is, like, are you done with your demo, or do you have more stuff to show and tell?
That was kind of the nuts and bolts of the presentation. So if you have any more questions, please.
I have a few. So can you actually transfer me the host?
Oh, sure. That's right. 1 sec.
I'm not able to see. But go ahead, like others, if you have any other questions, but I have a bunch.
So security and risk. So if we're APIing all this data in, where is it living and what's the risk of proprietary data? I work for a book publisher. So we have an interest in bringing topic texts together and then producing new work from it.
Yep.
Yeah, so that was perfect for that.
That was actually the second. So that was actually the second point over here in the data privacy, right? So very key question and common question: how do you ensure data privacy?
Yeah, great question. So, as you know, cybersecurity is top of mind for the world, right? So we do have a very strict cyber posture based on all sorts of best practices, like from NIST and things like that as well. So,
I can answer that as well.
You can dive deeper, that'd be fine.
Yeah, so if we again, being at the core research company, we can the main reason behind all this discovery was really about, can people run these machines locally, because they might not want to go to Microsoft, or they might not want to go to OpenAI and use a cloud product. The answer to that is yes. It's usually a bit of either a hybrid approach or completely on premises. So when you get a VesoNexus account, there are a few things during the configuration phase that we can do to use your own storage, meaning that all of the data is always in your storage perimeter. So it might be on your servers or it might be locally. That requires a bit of customization, or you can have a completely on-premises system. So you're not even using the VesoNexus cloud.
Okay.
That's a quick way to answer
so basically that. I can bring the whole system in my own VPC, whether I'm using AWS, Azure, or Google.
Yeah, correct. Exactly. That's obviously for more advanced use cases, but for the typical one, it'll be a hybrid where they use our cloud software, but they use their own local storage. So that's something we help their tech team set up, so that all of their data stays in their servers. The only thing they're sending out is the prompts with the information to use it. And we use our third-party models. And then again, if they go, well, we don't want to send it to an external model, we go, great, we'll help you host a local one as well. So while they use our cloud app, they can still have all their data and processing done locally.
Okay, great. Metrics. How do I know, like, what kind of metrics will your platform generate?
Good question. So I guess, you know, we'd have to define those and then, you know, build
Is there
out.
any out of the box metrics that we can see? Like, for example, suppose I create a library, I upload, 100 documents. Now people are asking questions, right, on those documents. And then how do I know? And that is actually, there is a follow-up question on that one. Like, how do I know whether this system is giving good answer, bad answer? You mentioned about like reinforcement learning, right? So how do we ensure reinforcement learning is happening and the bad answer is not coming back? Like if I give you some signals saying, hey, this is a bad answer.
Yeah, good question. Elias, that's more catered to you, but do you mind taking that one?
Yeah, so it really just comes down to the way we've built the system. So when we talk about reinforcement learning, we go one step further. So within the apps themselves, we set them up in a way that people can make their own apps in natural language. And the apps are essentially just an instruction. Hey, I want you to take these files that I give to you and turn them into X, Y, and Z. The way we provide the training, the way we provide the system is even one step further. So instead of just shooting into the blank and hoping that you're doing some training and the system starting to learn, you literally just give it the direction that you want. And when you're happy with it, your end app is saved anyway, and it's accessible by who you want in your organization to access it. So it really cuts down that learning period of, is this system creating usable output? Especially if you're doing consistent things like, I think mentioned before where Sandy, where the use cases we want to be able to take written works and combine them into potentially new ideas or new things, you would have apps for that you build and you maintain. And those apps are either going to create outlines or sections or important pieces. But yeah, all of that RLHF and that training is done through that intervention process, which is a lot more reliable than just throwing it to the ether and hoping the system will give you the best answer.
Okay. Next question, I think you have already kind of like answered to that, like, you can plug in like different kind of LLMs. So I'm skipping that. Oh, the other question that I had was like, if it's a SaaS platform, like what is your environment? Is it like deployed in AWS, Azure, Google? Where is it deployed? Or is it your own data centers? Like where are you deploying your application?
Yeah, so it's currently based on Google infrastructure, although it's portable. So depending on per client basis, if they need a local, again, back to that, yep.
So suppose, you mentioned portable, right? So suppose someone has AWS platform, I can install your app in the AWS platform, and then I should be able to like choose my own, Bedrock instance or something like that, right?
Yeah, that's correct. Your own infrastructure. So if you want to really if you want to do everything locally, you can really soup it up. And it really comes down to the point that, you might want to do everything your way, the companies, and then we can just jump in and do a custom build for somebody. So we've got that ability to just take all of our
of course, like
fair bit of our IP.
of course, then we have to like worry about like all the upgrades and everything, right?
Of course, yeah.
It's auto updated by you. Okay. How do you ensure? Like, I think Paddy, you mentioned a little bit about the pricing. Do you want to like talk about the pricing, or like is it pay per use or like freemium?
Sure. So that's fine. Yeah. So it's typically just per end user cost. There's two ways to go about this. There's initial setup fees, right? And then after this initial setup and getting it up and running and humming, it's our customers are either going metered usage, like per usage, per byte, or just a flat typical end user SaaS fee. So as Elias alluded to, just so many different use cases, you get this little flexibility there. So
So next question.
The flat fees. Yeah, sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead, Elias.
Yeah, so I think just extending on what Paddy mentioned, we create a lot of flexibility, especially because it's such a new space. Your option A is essentially you get a low monthly cost per employee, and you kind of pay as you go, similar to the old telephone models, where it's just you're getting charged on the interactions you're doing with the system. Plan B is similar, although you get a lot of you get the plan, you get a lot of included value, and the business itself can choose to go, well, that's how much usage we want per person anyway. We don't want to exceed that, and that really helps for budgeting and forecasting. Whereas more flexible teams are happier to take the lower up front, which is a low license, and see how much they use it.
Okay, awesome. Guardrails, big question over here. Like people are concerned about all this AI governance, AI ethics, AI, all sorts of things, right? So how do you ensure? I mean, of course, like the LLM comes with their own guardrails. Like OpenAI has their own guardrails. Like you cannot, ask a, hate comment or something like that. But on top of that, if someone wants to add their custom organization specific guardrails, do you have any capability to handle that?
Yeah, I mean, we have a team to work in tandem because I think, you know, at the end of the day, using a tool like this is always going to be human driven, right? So when I think of guardrails or bumper rails, like when you're playing bowling as a kid, right? It just comes down to being responsible as you use the tool. So that's part of, you know, we're here to be that offsite hired consultant, if you will. Does that help? So, you know, since
Thinking.
Yeah, so we're staying up to speed with the latest ISO and Europe developments when it comes to how you should be implementing AI systems. We're actually supporting them a little bit. I have a background in standards locally in my country as well, so working with standards, helping them develop systems. So we're very up to speed with like how do we ensure that implementations are standardized and we're following all of the systems. Because I'll give you an example right now. A lot of people say they're SOC 2 compliant, GDPR compliant, but a lot of those systems that say they're GDPR compliant actually can't validate and verify that they're pulling the data back, at least the embeddings, when users elect to remove their data from an organization. We can do that. So we are very like on the front of the guardrails, on the front of the standards.
Okay. Competition, right? Big players like AWS or Azure or Google are also in the space of you know, document search and giving the capability on the hand of the customers, right? So for example, I was in the reInvent 2 weeks back. Amazon released a product called Amazon Q, where I can connect to my own data store and kind of like start chatting in my documents. How do you differentiate yourself to that particular, those kind of products, and you know, what is the differentiating factor?
Yeah, I mean, I think it comes down to the flexibility that Elias has alluded to, right? The multiple options to work for your workflow, right? So, and the way it's built out, being the ContextAware piece we're mentioning too, is a big differentiator when it comes to these questions like driving down hallucinations, how to, you know, keep your teams in check when using AI for their job, and keeping track of metrics and accountability. So oftentimes a lot of big tools like any Amazon tool, Microsoft tool tends to be pretty stringent. There's a lot of rules within a box, right? It just is, call a spade a spade. We kind of, the flexibility gives you the opportunity to expand into a bigger box. I hope that makes sense. So,
okay, sounds good. We already talked about connectors. I think we touched about on the hallucination part. So suppose you mentioned, like, so I'll go to the next question, which is like, what is the process of sharing data in production? So for example, you showed me this UI where I can create a library and upload documents, right? But in real life, like, I'll have a production system where I have hundreds and thousands of documents. I need to create a pipeline to push those documents in a systematic way, right? So I cannot just upload documents. So what would be the process? Like, do you create, you know, provide any pipelines? Do you provide any CLI or any like APIs where I can upload documents? What, you know, if you can highlight a little bit.
yeah,
So that's done through API. And so we provide an internal API that people can connect to and authenticate with, and they're able to just as simple as just defining which library they want the files to go to. Yeah, and sync the data.
So
very straightforward file sharing.
Point to a S3 bucket or a point to a Google Drive or a SharePoint, something. Okay. So that's fair enough. I think we talked about the correctness of the answer. The other big question that I have is like, how do you ensure that the same answer comes back even if the LLM keeps on changing? So for example, today it's GPT 3.5, then so yesterday it was GPT 3.5, today it's GPT 4, tomorrow it will be GPT 5, right? And then Gemini, like, or whatever, like Anthropic, Claude, etc. All sorts of new LLMs are coming into picture. How do we ensure that with the changes of the LLM, of course, like,
how do you ensure?
You talked about the context, you talked about like, you know, it's not really a problem of the LLM, but it's more about the problem of the context. But then still, even if I give the proper context, if the different LLM gives me different answers based on like their upgrades and all, how do I ensure like rationalization of the answer is kind of like always received to the customer?
Yeah, so that one's as simple as just looking at software. Like every time you get a new software update, the features might change and then you have to train and learn on it. So what a lot of companies do is they choose their best fit and they go, that's creating really good answers for us. We're happy to freeze on that and test new ones as they come out. And that's what we're seeing already. We're seeing that these large language models, especially the large context window ones like Claude and GPT-4 Turbo, Claude 2.1, GPT-4 Turbo, they've got context windows now where you can, in theory, put hundreds of pages of text in. So you're up to the point already where you're going to get most of the value out. We're sort of hit the jet age already. So now it's just small improvements, which are going to, small improvements for the models to improve what they can do. But really all the value comes from that context retrieval system that we built. So we're making it so that no matter how tight and concise your language model is, we're trying to give it the best information to give you the best answer. Because ultimately these systems are lossy. They're not meant to give you a complete lossless answer. But that's fine when you trade off the latency and the speed it gives you in business. The value in productivity is absolutely astronomical because you're getting a system that is aware of the files you're talking to it about, and you're able to extract insights and create new things. It's, yeah, unbelievably good.
That's interesting. So you mentioned like, so earlier you mentioned about context aware, like, and you know, not only semantic search, but also like context-based search. And then now you also mentioned about like large context windows provided by the LLMs, like the Anthropic, Claude, or you know, GPT-4, right? So what is the balance? Like, where do we see the balance? How much context aware should our search be? And how much do we leverage the large context windows of these LLMs?
Well, that's the beauty of the system. It's the whole design here is that as the end user, you don't really have to get in there and fiddle with it. It's automatic. Every time you submit a prompt into chat or into the apps, a dynamic retrieval strategy is built and then executed behind the scenes by one of the agents in the system. So it decides, all right, based on what they're asking, I need to go and grab 100 pages of this document, 100 pages of that document, put them together, and then send them through. And it'll come up with that estimation itself, the best way possible, based on your prompt. So that's where it really comes down to the user training piece. So going back to your question about Amazon Q and the other competitors, we wouldn't say we're competing with them at all. We serve a much different purpose to those products. Those products are more to be tacked on to existing users of those platforms. We provide a much more encompassing service through Veso. And when I say encompassing, we're there to, right from the beginning, accessing multiple elements. Yeah, so I'll come back to your question in a second, Sandy. So yeah, right there from the beginning, we provide training from day dot, education. We do the full white glove service to ensure that everybody that needs to be using the application is trained and well versed in how to use it. What we're seeing is people love chat. They love chat more than anything now because it's actually connected to their data. So they've been maybe playing with ChatGPT for a year, and now they've just got a massive upgrade, and they go, wow, this thing's the bee's knees. You show it to people that haven't used chat, and then they're like, wow, it's writing my emails and it's doing my documents. And that's what we're sort of starting to really come to terms with, is this sidekick approach that when you connect it to data and give people a bit of a sidekick, that's already unbelievable value. People can go, great, we don't have to play with this anymore. So that's a really obviously lengthy process to what you asked, but yeah, that's how we keep it concise and keep it trained. Going back to Sandy's question, are you accessing multiple elements? Yeah, so yeah, multiple. So you, as an organization, you can determine, hey, we just want to use the best language model based on the prompt that the users provide. That's called auto routing. So it just decides based on whatever prompt you provide to send it to GPT or send it to Anthropic. But we usually kind of just choose one vendor for that reason. We want it to be pretty consistent. So as your organization comes to us, we might just go, yeah, well, Claude's going to be the best thing for you for the next year. Use Claude as your main model. So that, again, back to your question. Yeah.
A follow-up question. What about image databases that are, that are captioned and keyworded already?
Great question.
Is there a way for us to upload our images? We don't have a lot of images, but photos of authors and photos that are contained in the books.
Yeah, of course. So yeah, our ingestion engine supports images. It breaks them down and it does vision processing on them. So it actually does store them as, this is a photo of John, and John is XYZ. Obviously, it's given the context. Like if you give it an empty photo with a person, it's going to go, this is a photo of a person. So you have to just kind of understand how that system works. We're trying to make it as automatic as possible. It will detect like charts and be able to break down charts and things in documents as well.
So in a way, it could replace your Google Drive or your Dropbox or any of that, or your SharePoint, right? You could just use your front end platform and say, semantically, give me this, give me that, give me that, as long as everything's in there.
That's correct.
Yeah, eventually. That's the idea, yeah.
Mm-hmm. Would you say that's kind of your central offering, if you were to say it in a generalized way across many different businesses?
Yeah, for sure. I think having it as a central knowledge base, a central oracle for your whole business is the really big offering. So you can have your data living in there in a safe way that can be accessed by people, but it can also live in there in a way that it can be accessed very easily. We don't mind too much about being the main hosting source, because what we figured is, okay, data is going to be coming in from everywhere, left, right, and center. Data is going to be coming in from information systems. Data is going to be provided in by people, but what it's doing is it's creating this oracle for your entire business. So that, like for that use case I mentioned before, if Joe leaves and he takes all of his intel with him, he's already left quite a bit of training information and data into the system that other people can access and work with based on their permissions, of course. So it's all permission based, different levels in the business, access different files. And that's what makes it really, really succinct as well.
So it's that plus the agents doing the app. So it's like the central repository and then these agents that can act on that data in different ways custom to the business. Yeah,
exactly right. So we have two other features that are coming. We have feature one, which is dashboard. So you'll be able to just create a dashboard with predetermined instructions and share it to people. That automatically accesses the data and it refreshes as the data updates. So the dashboard might be, what were our numbers for Q3 2023, or what are our current recruitment numbers, etc. You can share that dashboard, and that's going to be an amazing way and as well as website chatbot. So you'll be able to put a library together and then pop it on, not just a website chatbot, but a link to a chatbot. So you could give your employees that are onboarding a link to a chat and they could talk to the chat. But we can get into that in detail if we have a conversation. I don't want to, I think I've derailed this enough. And then have you worked with any healthcare use cases? We're exploring a few, especially with universities as well. And those healthcare use cases are more or less patient diagnostics. We know a lot of systems are opening up now that do patient diagnostics. We have an advantage on those systems because we do on-prem and safe, secure deployments. So instead of Nexus being a product where we chose one niche and one industry, we went for the tool approach. We went, how robust can we make this so people can use it for different use cases? In healthcare, I can see it being a valuable resource for capturing notes from patients, creating libraries for different sorts of patients, and maybe working with real patient information. That's going to be a really cool use case. So being able to potentially create a new library, a new file per patient, and store their information in it. So you can imagine a doctor's office would be very enabled with this sort of software.
Yeah, what
I can speak to
curious
that.
about is that Epic is the software I'm familiar with, and I think they've started to branch into this place of vast change right now. They've been an electronic health records company for, I guess, 30 years now, but they've always struggled with getting doctors on board with putting data into the system so that they can later get the data out. And I'm really curious how the AI side of things is going to accelerate that and perhaps improve that.
Yeah, I love that. The getting data out, you've really hit the nail on the head. So getting data in is one of our things, and getting data out is probably our biggest piece of focus. So what we inadvertently figured out while we were developing this system, we didn't develop it with this in mind, but it's become our most important use case, is we've got these legacy systems. They're big, they're clunky, they're dirty. We don't want to keep updating them. We're still paying for a Sun from the 1990s. Like, why? And it's because the data in the middle can't be accessed by any other system. But here you go, clap your hands, and you've got this brand new natural language interface you can use with your old data. And then all of a sudden, we don't need those old clunky apps anymore, and learn how to use 5 different apps for the same info, which is ultimately information technology, which is getting information in and getting information out. If we really boil it down, the entire industry, it's literally those two things. And as a UX, I had about 10 years of UX behind me, and we've built some products that have gone out to millions of people. And ultimately, it's always, how short can you make that string? How short can you make that path for people to get the information out they're looking for? The shorter, the better.
There are a few other questions I can see. Let's see. Are you accessing multiple alerts? So that is already covered. Healthcare. I have seen hype about the product merge. Does your product do what merge claims to do? So Sandy, the question from Sandy.
Yeah, I'm getting a lot of information about, I mean, it seems to be just a dashboard to integrate lots of AI applications. And so it sounded like you guys were doing something similar. So just
okay.
Yeah, we are. So we're working with just on Merge's site now. A lot of HR teams, APAR, DEI, even accounting. You know, as Elias said, we were kind of saying is our tool can do a lot. So we just get specific to your question to the point, right? So be like, Patty, can you do this? Yes, we can. So good question.
By the way, Merge is a merge in the field of technology. Merge is another company. Merge is similar to a company we're working with. So what Merge does is it gets the data into Nexus, for example. It doesn't actually do it on itself. It just allows you to unify your information. But it doesn't, from what I can see at the moment, it doesn't provide the other end. It just goes, okay, here's all your information merged into one data model. So that's similar to that Stack One company I was talking about. They're great for us because they just make it easy for us to take in that data, that information.
But you don't need it because you guys can do that.
Yeah, it's more of a complementing. So we don't compete with them whatsoever. They actually complement each other. We do something they don't. So it's that
we don't
they get the information.
We don't need a merge to work with you guys, is what you're saying.
Yeah, that's correct. Because we just build out with Stack One or some other partner. Yeah.
Okay, gotcha.
Any
My
other
last
question?
question is just, are you like a licensee of ChatGPT then? I mean, or other tools? Has your company licensed with them?
So the way we have is our provider. We use a provider to provide us access to all of those systems. We have commercial agreements with that provider in place. But then again, it's a very simple conversation to say, hey guys, we just want to run our own local model for embeddings and language. We don't want to use a third-party provider of the models. Think of the models as BP, Exxon, or I don't know if Exxon's a good one, but BP, Shell. You've got petrol providers and gas providers. We're kind of the petrol station, so we don't mind where it comes from. But if you do want to go, hey, I want my own homebrew petrol, you go, yeah, great, we can build that for you as well. So I think that to your question, we have great agreements in place. Like we're very big on the whole no train frozen model. For frozen model means the models that you send data to, they don't learn anymore. They don't learn more than the initial training and instruction set. So they're frozen in a way. Think of them as frozen in ice. They can work with them, but they won't change. So their temperature can be controlled and they don't get too hallucinatory in nature. And what we found is with our system, once we're providing really good context to a decent model, we like to say hallucinations are always there and you should always fact check everything that comes out. This is just a speed tool. This is a productivity tool. Though we have had hard times, if we're providing the right information, hard times actually faulting the information that comes back to us. So it comes back pretty darn close to exactly what you use, if not better. So that's another piece that I speak to.
I didn't get the QR code for Patty, only for you, Joe.
I am.
Flash
So
that back
here you
up.
go.
Thanks.
You can just take a screenshot.
Yeah.
Any other questions from anyone? Prakash, did we answer your question? You were the first one to kind of get started with.
Yeah,
questions.
I really have a lot of questions,
Yeah.
which was one of my objectives from this session. Really, I'm still in early days. I'm fascinated
Yeah.
by the technology. It was great to hear, but it has spawned a lot more questions. And
Sure.
I'm just
That is
wondering.
the goal. That is the goal.
Yeah, I'm just wondering, are you thinking, and this is a question for everybody, are you thinking of continuing the conversation in any other context, like, or what do we do from here? Because I'm keen to just really, like I mentioned, I'm in a mood to experiment. But then I don't know where to start. I have heard all of this and I think all the questions are very insightful. So what do we do from here? Where do we go from here?
So two options, right? I mean, like the only option is to kind of like connect offline. That's what I can tell. So Paddy, you can, I think like from Veso.ai standpoint, you can connect with Paddy and offline. And I think Paddy, you are also kind of setting up a few more sessions I've seen in LinkedIn. So that would be, I'm pretty sure like those will be like more insightful. I mean, if you want to connect with me, Prakash, I'm also available to kind of like do some more brainstorming. We can kind of take that offline. And yeah, I think, I'm also like planning to do a little bit more deep dive on those like, next steps of, things and trying to explore more, different technologies around this particular topic. So we can be connected, we can explore, we can brainstorm, a lot of things can happen. Thank you.
Okay, so the meetup group is the way to connect, or is this
LinkedIn? I think the LinkedIn is the
LinkedIn is
easy. Yeah, LinkedIn, we can connect.
cool. All right.
There was one, I think, last question that we can take. Paul, you had something? I see.
Yes, I'm educating myself for about 6 months on prompt engineering and all this whole thing, AI, LLMs, etc. And I've been wondering, as I've been reading more and more, is with hallucinations and the LLMs getting better and so on, and especially with prompts getting better too, with people getting better at them, I wondered if there is, I've read something about a critical thing being matching the tokenizer with the LLM, for one, okay? And then, but it made me wonder too, in terms of eliminating hallucinations, while we get better at prompt engineering and doing the prompts and stacking them and so on, making them more complex to manage the output, does it seem reasonable to also have a second, it could be the same one or a second one, tokenizer to manage and look at the hallucinations and improve the output as well? I've wondered about that, and I'm wondering about tokenization technology, because it seems like that's the critical secret sauce in terms of getting the right output from an LLM.
Yeah, great question there. So I'll speak to that briefly, just to not hijack the session. So the tokenization technology, that layer that I've been reading about as well, is more done by the model providers themselves, so the model developers, as opposed to somebody at a higher level. So if we think about the different layers in the cake, with the models down the bottom, you've got the RAG and training systems on top of that. And then on top of that, furthermore, the third layer is the user interface, where the users actually access the system. So when it comes to like improving, when we talk about improving the tokenization, that's done two ways, either by the model and the way the vector database stores and recalls the embeddings and information. So we do the vector database side of things to improve the tokenization, but we don't touch the model improvement. So that really just comes down to the models. But in the last year, they've done some amazing work. Like at the moment, they're very, very optimized, and they're getting more optimized by the day. And that always just benefits us, because we don't slow that down with our technology. We just accelerate off of the back of that.
Okay. Now, what I'm wondering though, with what you just said too, Elias, is that, in terms of how it's going to be implemented and all the stuff we're all reading about, ethical guidelines and guardrails, implementing them and so on, that it seems like at some point, whether it's a final stage or, one of the repeated interim stages in the implementations of AI, that what we're going to be doing is having iterative clusters, let's say, of, prompts with tokenizers matched with LLMs, and whether it's another tokenizer and looking at the output, engaging it, or a human doing that. And then again, start with prompt, LLM, and seeing the output to get what a business organization wants out of their value from the process. And so it seems like that's what we're going to get to. So and I think it's going to be tailored probably to industries and organizations within industries, and maybe even within business functions within the organizations within industries. Because I think we're seeing startups that are developing products that would do that, that package to specific industries now coming up and being funded. So wouldn't we at some point, that tokenization process? I mean, I read one that had 38,000 tokens, and there is always for an LLM that had 7 billion elements. So, I don't remember what the word is.
Parameters.
Okay. So, and I don't know, and I don't think I'll ever get to have to intuit the secret sauce of how a tokenizer works, because I see a 8-letter word and it's broken down into every possible subset of consecutive letters. It could be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, or all 8, So there's going to be every letter of the alphabet in those 38,000 tokens. There's going to be every possibility of every one of those multiple letters within all of those words. And then
what is your question in that?
I'm wondering, like, what is again, I'm getting at what's the secret sauce, and what do we match the secret sauce going into the tokenization and the secret sauce coming out to verify and confirm the output is relevant.
Relevancy, not for speed, you're saying.
And quality. Yeah. Relevancy being determined as quality, accuracy, value.
That's done. That's done more in the retrieval layer. So it's very subjective on what gets. The thing about output is it's extremely subjective on the views of the operator. So the operator themselves might be trying to extract information from the system, a certain type of information from the system. When they get the response, what they want to see in that response is the response itself and how you came to this determination. Our system is building that second piece that most systems don't have, which is where's the observability into how you gave me this answer. It's great you gave me this answer, but how did you give me this answer? That's the secret sauce that I care about. That's why we're open sourcing observability tools at the moment. So those are the big piece of things we're working on that don't exist at the moment. So we're kind of really cutting edge there, because that observability layer is to us the most important piece, because understanding how a system, especially semantic search, came to its conclusion to go, I'm going to go there because those vectors looked really good together. And I chose to just select them and add them to the prompt. It's actually like when you break it down and visualize it, it's a lot simpler than it technically alludes to be. But it is something that, it's a piece of research for us. Observability is really everything.
It sounds incredible value and straightforward, and to be able to trace that backwards and say, okay, this is where I wanted it to go in a different direction, and to be able to modify that sounds fantastic. That sounds like exactly what people would want.
Some people,
guys, sorry to interrupt. So we are running out of time. I need to wrap this up, but I think this was fantastic, discussion. Thanks, Elias, for
I'd like to explore what Paul was talking about more. I mean, I just think it's the end of the meeting, but I think where he's going is fascinating. It's the whole black box
thing. It is. Maybe
people of this type like to know more. So
Paul, maybe we'll connect and set up something more deep dive into this particular topic.
I would love it. And by the way, I'm out of invitations on LinkedIn for the month, so please connect with me. I'll put my LinkedIn URL here.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
So we need to wrap this up. Elias and Patrick, really appreciate your time for spending this hour. And also, if you can share those open source tools that you were talking about, the secret sauce, things that you're planning to open source, so that people can leverage, and you can take it forward from there. I love to
amazing.
Sorry, go ahead.
No, I said that's amazing. Yeah, just on the back of that as well, feel free to either reach out to myself, anybody in the session, or Patrick, based on the question of Prakash before. How do you continue? Just tap us on the back and we'll set up some sessions. It's no biggie.
Thank you all very much. I appreciate it.
Yeah, this was everyone. It's great. Thanks for job.
Happy holidays.
Thank you, Zal. This was a great session. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
Okay. Let me know if you are able.